Master of Untold Daos Chapter 1 to Chapter 10. Ding, Master of Myriad Daos System is being installed. Master of Myriad Daos System is being decompressed. 10%, 30%, 100%, installation successful. Welcome to the Master of Myriad Daos System. Remember to give a 5-star rating. Chen Ming was dumbfounded as he listened to the gentle voice in his head. What's going on? I transmigrated just like that. Chen Ming had a helpless expression. He was an orphan, and after graduating, he started working. His life was bland, and he liked to roast novels. He remembered when he was reading a novel, and when he was drinking water, he accidentally spilled it on the socket. He got an electric shock, and then heard the system lady's voice. Memories flooded his mind. Chen Ming, second stage cultivator, 23 years old, one of the 4 elders of the Endless Swords sect. Besides the sect leader, the 4 of them held the highest position. His parents were still alive, and his grandfather was the regent of the mortal world. Gold, silver, and treasures were innumerable, and he was deeply loved by his grandfather. He was young and elegant, reaching the 2nd realm of Dao initiation at the age of 23. He was also one of the 4 elders of the Myriad Sword sect. He also had the ancient desolate sword body and the sword heart of the emperor. His lustrous king sword was superb. He was known as the living legend of the Yan kingdom. His talent was out of the ordinary and everyone envied him. There were 4 realms of cultivation: Dao sense, Dao initiation, Dao comprehension, and transcendence. But what the hell is with me being in the 2nd realm of Dao initiation the moment I transmigrated? F***ck, didn't they say that transmigrating would give you a cheat? Didn't they say that there would be idiots who would beat you to death even if they knew they couldn't beat you? Then the main character would be filled with hatred and anger as he picked up treasures and leveled up? Where did the main character come from to be in the 2nd realm of cultivation? He hadn't even passed the 1st realm's instance. Also, didn't they say that the main character cultivated some kind of weird cheat technique? What he cultivated was a common one, and his parents were still alive. This kind of background wasn't tragic enough. He didn't look like a main character at all. This script wasn't right at all. As long as his grandfather died, he would either become the next sect leader of the Myriad Swords sect, or he would become a prince in the mortal world. Who knows, he might even be able to kill the emperor and become the emperor himself. The civil and military officials would definitely not say a single word against him, and they might even be moved to tears. If he wasn't strong enough, then he would be the main character's cannon fodder after a war broke out. But if he was strong enough, it would be like spitting a mouthful of saliva on the main character's parents when he was flying on a sword in the sky, and then being killed by the main character, kill the main character while he was still weak. Don't, are you kidding me? Do you know what's called a main character's aura? Although he had the ancient desolate sword body, kingly sword heart, and lustrous king sword, which sounded very awesome, wasn't it just courting death against a main character with cheats? Do you think you would be reasonable? And even if the main character couldn't beat him, he could still run. Who knew what kind of escape method the main character would use to blind his dog eyes? According to Chen Ming's many years of experience in reading novels, if he wanted to survive in this dangerous world where he had to worry about being killed by the main character at all times, there was only one way. That was to hug the main character's thigh tightly. But to be the main character's follower was a bit sullen. And if this was a gay novel, with his beauty, wouldn't he be sending himself to bed by the main character? Ding. System activated. Since the host has a disciple position, the first mission is to accept a disciple. Reward, 10 merits. Chen Ming asked in his heart, what's the use of these merits? Ding. Merits can be used to comprehend techniques, spells, and divine abilities. Since the host is bound to the Myriad Dao Master System, the host's physique has automatically become the limitless Dao body and can cultivate any technique in the world. Every time a disciple breaks through a major realm, they will receive a chance to draw a prize. Chen Ming thought to himself. He noticed the word comprehend. It meant that as long as he had enough merits, he could directly comprehend a technique or divine ability in an instant. Also, it seems like I can accept a few disciples like the main character. I admire my own wit. Who else could have a higher status than the main character's master? Who else? Deep in the mountains, on a tall mountain hidden in the clouds, there was a huge stone platform. The stone platform was 1,000 feet long and 1,000 feet wide, and it was square in shape. On the stone platform, there were thousands of youths looking up at a high platform. On the high platform, there were more than 10 immortal masters. These immortal masters were the cultivators that they wanted to be apprenticed to and learn the Tao of immortal cultivation. The youth's eyes were filled with excitement. If they were chosen by the immortal masters on the high platform, they would be immortals and transcend the mortal world. This was the Myriad Sword sect, and Chen Ming was the immortal master on the high platform. After making up his mind, Chen Ming began to take an interest in the youths below the platform. Li Chongqing saw that Chen Ming was interested in the youths and asked curiously, "Elder Chen, you also want to accept disciples this time?" The previous Chen Ming had never accepted a disciple. He was focused on cultivation, and accepting disciples would only delay his cultivation time. This time, he found out that Chen Ming was interested in these youths and couldn't help but be surprised. Chen Ming smiled embarrassedly. "This old man is not young anymore. It is time for me to accept a disciple. Otherwise, if this old man were to die one day, it would be awkward if there was no one to send me off. If there is a good talent and a good jade under my wing, it would be a good story to tell." The white-haired Li Chongqing looked at the handsome Chen Ming with his jade-like hair and delicate skin. A Dao Initiation Realm cultivator's lifespan is 300 years. You are only 23 years old. Using the Dao Initiation Realm's lifespan, you are still a child. If you call yourself an old man, how can a 200-year-old man like me call myself an old man with half a foot in the ground? Li Chongqing smiled awkwardly. "That's true. Elder Chen, you are one of the 4 grand elders of the Myriad Sword sect. If you don't have a disciple under you, it would be inexcusable. Let's see which youths are fated." When the elder in charge of the platform heard that Chen Ming wanted to accept a disciple, he was shocked. He used his Dao voice and loudly shouted, "Youths, you are in luck this time. Our Myriad Sword sect's youngest grand elder, the grandson of the Yan Kingdom's regent, Elder Chen, wants to accept a disciple." Hearing that Chen Ming wanted to accept a disciple, the youths' faces were filled with joy. They grew up listening to the legends of Chen Ming. If they could become Chen Ming's disciple, then they would really soar to the sky. Chen Ming casually looked at the youths below the platform. After a full day, he finally finished calculating the talents, strength, and family backgrounds of these youths. Li Chongqing handed the list he compiled to Chen Ming. "Here is the list of youths who are qualified to cultivate in our Myriad Sword sect. Elder Chen, you have never accepted a disciple before, so you can choose first." Chen Ming took the list. The top 10 were either from good families or extremely talented youths. The first was even someone with the blue destiny sword body. Li Chongqing thought that Chen Ming would choose 1 or 2 of the top 10 disciples, but who would have thought that Chen Ming would directly turn to the last page to see who had stepped over the threshold? With his understanding, how could the main character be one of these guys? Number 1? Impossible. If they were number 1, where would the main character find monsters to fight in the sect? This blue destiny sword body seemed like the main character's first mini-boss. Forget it, the top 10 are all a pass. The last place is worthy of the main character's identity. Chen Ming directly turned to the last page. Xianxia, 13 years old, first level of Dao Sense Realm. Extremely poor talent, poor family background, and both parents are dead. She crossed 100,000 mountains to become a disciple. Due to her tenacious Dao heart and arduous journey, she was reluctantly given a spot. Chen Ming's eyes lit up. This kid was simply a monster. There were countless monsters and desolate beasts in the 100,000 mountains. She was only a first-level Dao Sense Realm kid, yet she was able to come out alive. She definitely had to be using cheats. What? You're saying that she might have just been lucky? She didn't actually use cheats? If she didn't use cheats, then the 100,000 mountains and hundreds of thousands of monsters couldn't kill her. With such heaven-defying luck, you're telling her that she's not the main character? What a joke! Xianxia stood behind the many disciples and looked at Chen Ming, who was flipping through the list. The top 10 youths unconsciously took a few steps forward, wanting to let Chen Ming see them more clearly. They even revealed their cultivation, hoping to be chosen by Chen Ming. Xianxia never thought that she would be chosen. Her cultivation talent was just too poor. Although she could draw qi into her body far beyond ordinary people, the amount of qi that could be retained in her body to temper her meridians was very little. She also had a younger brother who had been captured and taken to the city lord's mansion as a slave. She had to cultivate and save her brother. She knew that no immortal master would take a fancy to her, but as long as she could cultivate, there would be hope. In the stands, the sage-like Chen Ming looked at the youths below. His cold gaze swept across the audience, and he said indifferently, "Where is Xianxia?" The youths looked around, not knowing which one of the lucky ones was Xianxia. Xianxia looked at the handsome Chen Ming. Was this living legend talking to her? Chen Ming smiled gently, like a gentleman. "Where is Xianxia?" Xianxia slowly walked forward with a trace of hope in her heart. She cupped her hands towards Chen Ming and said, "This little one is Xianxia." Chen Ming slowly walked down from the stage and stopped in front of Xianxia. He smiled at Xianxia and said in an unquestionable voice, "From today onwards, you are my first disciple." The system lady's voice sounded at this moment. Ding. Disciple recruitment complete. Reward, 10 merits. Lustrous King Mountain. Xianxia followed Chen Ming to the top of the lustrous King Mountain. Her arms and legs were sore from walking. Xianxia cursed in her heart, "Isn't Master an immortal? Why didn't he fly on his sword but walk back?" Chen Ming looked back at Xianxia. He also knew that it was strange that he didn't fly on his sword, so he said, "The so-called cultivation is to comprehend the great Tao of heaven and earth at every moment. You followed me all the way, but you didn't complain at all. It shows that your temperament is not bad." What a joke. Would Chen Ming tell you that he was afraid that he would accidentally spit on the protagonist's parents when he was flying on his sword? Xianxia suddenly felt a sense of respect in her heart. So Master was comprehending the great Tao of heaven and earth and was testing my temperament. Master was indeed an expert. Chen Ming brought Xianxia to the courtyard where he cultivated. He looked at Xianxia and said, "Do you know the rules of becoming a disciple?" Xianxia nodded obediently. Chen Ming told Xianxia where the tea leaves and teapot were. Then, he leisurely leaned back on the rattan chair and watched Xianxia brew tea. This girl looked quite cute. Her skin was so tender that water could be squeezed out of it. Her hair was as black as jade. She had a pair of willowy eyebrows and watery eyes, as if she was speaking silently. Wait, why is it a girl? Is this a female supremacy novel? Oh no. Didn't female supremacy novels like teacher-student relationships the most? It would be best if they could have 3 lifetimes or something? Then, he would become one of Xianxia's harem, the legendary spare tire, just. As Chen Ming was letting his imagination run wild, Xianxia held the tea with both hands and knelt in front of Chen Ming. She said respectfully, "Master, please have some tea." Chen Ming took a sip of tea and looked at Xianxia. He said, "Qingyao, what do you think of the name Long Out Yin?" Xianxia was speechless. Why did Master ask her such a strange question? Very domineering. Chen Ming scrutinized Xianxia. Changing a girl's name to Long Out Yin isn't appropriate. Forget it, Qingyao. Is there anyone else in the family? Xianxia said, "Disciple also has a younger brother, taken as a slave by the city lord." Chen Ming's expression didn't change, but he was laughing in his heart. The script was already written. The unyielding girl's family was ruined, her only brother was taken to the city lord's mansion as a slave, the girl trekked thousands of mountains and rivers, entered an immortal sect, cultivated, and returned with a killing spree, beheading powerful enemies. After taking another sip of tea, Chen Ming said, "All right, I drank your tea, so I am your master." Xianxia looked at Chen Ming. "Master, my talent is very poor. I might embarrass Master." Chen Ming smiled. No, no, no. In my eyes, you are a monstrous genius." Xianxia, ah? Chen Ming coughed twice. Everyone's physique is different. Maybe it's because you haven't opened your conception and governor meridians, so the protagonist aura isn't obvious enough. Xianxia was puzzled. Conception and governor meridians? Protagonist aura? But Master, I've been cultivating for 7 years, and I'm still at the first level of Daos sense realm. Chen Ming said, "These are trivial matters. Cultivate for a while and let Master take a look." Xianxia sat cross-legged on a stone in the courtyard and began cultivating. The so-called Dao sense realm was to draw spiritual energy into the body to temper the meridians, then use the meridians to temper the blood, and the blood to temper the body. Only with a strong body could one withstand the spiritual energy of the Dao initiation realm and form their own spiritual altar. Ordinary cultivators had 10 meridians in total, and each opened meridian would increase their cultivation by 1 layer. Xianxia began to communicate with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Xianxia felt a gust of wind blow past, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth converged into a vortex, converging towards Xianxia. Chen Ming's eyelids twitched. She really is a protagonist. She's only at the first level of Dao sense realm, but her cultivation is comparable to a 7th level Dao sense realm cultivator. This amount of spiritual energy is simply monstrous. Chen Ming looked at Xianxia and placed his hand on her back, feeling the spiritual energy in Xianxia's body tempering her meridians. But he instantly discovered a problem. Why is it that others temper their meridians, but you temper your entire body? No wonder you're still at the first level of Dao sense realm after so many years. Others only temper their 10 meridians, but you temper your entire body. What kind of strange constitution was this? Could this be the legendary Dao sense realm physique that allowed one to reach the 81st layer? He remembered that it was very troublesome to awaken such a physique. It required a large amount of spirit stones, and even Dao initiation realm cultivators viewed spirit stones as treasures. They were treasures that only Dao initiation realm cultivators were qualified to use. She really is a protagonist. Dao sense realm cultivators need things that only Dao initiation realm cultivators can use. Chen Ming woke Xianxia and took out 10 spirit stones from his storage pouch. Try cultivating with these. Xianxia looked at Chen Ming with a trace of fear. Master, these are spirit stones that only Dao initiation realm cultivators are qualified to use. Only those at the 10th level of Dao sense realm can use them, or else they'll explode and die. Chen Ming shook his head indifferently. Don't worry, use them as you please. With your master here, what are you afraid of? Xianxia dubiously picked up a spirit stone and began absorbing the spiritual energy within. She was surprised to find that she didn't feel any spiritual energy at all. It was so abundant that it felt like her body was going to explode. Master really is an expert. Delighted, Xianxia began absorbing the spirit stones wholeheartedly. Chen Ming glanced over and confirmed that there were no problems. He then walked out of the courtyard. An old servant came over and asked, "Does your highness have any orders?" Chen Ming pointed at Xianxia in the courtyard. "Old Feng, this is my disciple. Do you see? She has a younger brother who was captured by the city lord as a slave. Do you understand?" Old Feng revealed an expression of sudden realization. This old servant understands. This old servant will send 3,000 soldiers to destroy the city lord's mansion. I guarantee that not a single blade of grass will survive. Then I'll bring Miss Xianxia's brother back. This way, Miss Xianxia will be able to cultivate in peace and won't be distracted. Chen Ming slapped Old Feng's head and scolded, "What the hell do you understand? Send a Dao initiation realm consecrator." Old Feng thought that 3,000 soldiers was ruthless enough, but who knew that Chen Ming was even more ruthless? He actually sent a Dao initiation realm cultivator to kill the city lord. This old servant understands. I'll have His Highness send a Dao initiation realm consecrator to kill the city lord and save Miss Xianxia's brother. Chen Ming slapped Old Feng's shoulder again. No, Old Feng, where's your cleverness when you went to Yihong brothel without paying? If you kill the city lord, where will my disciple find a dungeon instance? Where will she get a mini-boss? Are you going to get one for me? How are we going to follow this script? Send a Dao initiation realm cultivator to watch over my disciple's brother. As long as his life isn't in danger or he's not disabled, they can do whatever they want. It'll be best if he's covered in cuts and bruises. That'll make Xianxia's heart ache, and she'll have an epiphany. It's perfect. Then Xianxia will only be able to kill the city lord's son for the first time. Then the city lord will have a Dao sense realm cultivator as his relative, and they'll beat Xianxia up. At that time, the consecrator will rescue Xianxia and her brother. Old Feng scratched his head. Chen Ming cleaned up. What's wrong? Old Feng said, it's a bit confusing. Chen Ming said, why do you care so much? Just do as I say. Old Fong said, that city lord is just an ant. What if he learns that Miss Qingyao has become the heir's disciple and releases her brother? Chen Ming's eyes lit up. Old Fong, you've become smart again. Then send another 10,000 soldiers to completely seal off the city. Don't let any news leak. Old Fong silently mourned for the city lord. This old servant will do as you say. There was no problem for Zhuo Qingyao to awaken her constitution, but Chen Ming was now pondering what kind of cultivation method she should cultivate. This was the main character. He couldn't let her cultivate a common cultivation method, right? But if it wasn't a common cultivation method, what kind of divine-level cultivation method was it? He hadn't even seen a divine-level cultivation method, let alone a divine-level cultivation method. What should he do? Oh right, weren't there some strange cultivation methods among the common cultivation methods? Except for the main character, who would be unable to break through in their lifetime, and who would die, smiling at Zhuo Qingyao, Chen Ming said, Qingyao, let's go to the scripture pavilion to find a cultivation method for you. Bringing Zhuo Qingyao to the scripture pavilion, he bumped into Li Chongging, who was leading a group of disciples to look for cultivation methods. The Qingming sword physique was following behind Li Chongging. Li Chongging probably gave the sect master a lot of benefits to get the Qingming sword physique. When Li Chongging saw Chen Ming coming here, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Chen Ming, this person, had a prominent family background, famous throughout the world, and elegant, but why did he directly accept a disciple who was ranked last? Could it be that Chen Ming coveted this girl's beauty? But how old was Zhuo Qingyao? Her body hadn't matured yet. Wait, I suddenly had a bold idea. Could it be that Chen Ming liked young girls? No. Could it be that Chen Ming discovered something different about Zhuo Qingyao? But no matter how Li Chongging looked at it, this girl's talent was still so poor that it made people's hair stand up. Could it be that Chen Ming's cultivation had a problem and his eyesight had gone bad? Li Chongging walked in front of Chen Ming, cupped his hands and said, Elder Chen, are you here to look for a cultivation method for your disciple? Chen Ming nodded slightly and said, yes. After all, Li Chongging was still wary of Chen Ming's identity. His family background was too illustrious. Since that's the case, Elder Chen should choose first. Otherwise, we'll have to go through the trouble of choosing the same cultivation method at the same time. Chen Ming smiled and said, since that's the case, I won't be polite. At this moment, Wang Tian suddenly walked up. It was the Green Destiny sword body. He faced Chen Ming and asked, Elder Chen, I would like to know why you did not accept me as your disciple. You have the ancient sword body, and I have the Green Destiny sword body. Both of us have the physique of the sword Dao, and we are the most suitable for each other. Chen Ming was overjoyed. It's coming. This is more like it. If I don't get called trash a few times, how can I be called a main character? For a moment, Chen Ming looked at Zhuo Qingyao with a burning gaze. She was indeed a monster. Chen Ming's expression did not change. He smiled and pretended to be profound. Under my tutelage, there is no discrimination in education. If I accept you and easily win first place in the new disciples tournament, it would be too easy. How can I show off my ability as a master? Wang Tian's eyebrows twitched. King did not accept me because you wanted to show off your ability? Can you come up with a more bizarre reason? Wang Tian said angrily. Then we'll wait and see. In the new disciples tournament in 3 months, Elder Chen will have to give this trash a few more protective treasures. Otherwise, if I accidentally kill him, it won't look good. Chen Ming mourned for Wang Tian for 3 seconds. Stupid young man. Of all people to mess with, you just had to mess with the main character. You're really looking for shit. 1, 2, 3. Alright, the morning ended. Chen Ming walked in front of the scripture pavilion's elder and asked, right, do you have any cultivation methods that few people practice? Even if they do, no one can master them, and many people die from them? The scripture pavilion's elder's eyebrows twitched. I do. There's a cultivation method called the 9 Nines Mysteries that no one has ever practiced. According to the records left behind, this cultivation method is extremely powerful. It's the strongest cultivation method in the Dao sense realm, but anyone who practices it will die. No one can avoid qi deviation, so no one dares to practice it. Oh, Elder Chen, why are you asking this? Don't tell me you're thinking of. Chen Ming chuckled. The 99's mysteries, right? Give it to me. Chen Ming turned to Zhuo Qingyao and smiled gently. Qingyao, you should practice the 99's mysteries. Zhuo Qingyao was petrified. Master, you're really poisonous, Li Chongying was petrified. It's over, it seems like my bold idea was wrong. Chen Ming is simply crazy. I have to report this to the sect master, Wang Tian was petrified. Fortunately, Chen Ming didn't take me. That was close, the disciples were petrified. Is this really Chen Ming? That living legend? Why is he so different from the legends? Chen Ming was too lazy to care so much and left with Zhuo Qingyao. When they returned to the lustrous King Mountain, Zhuo Qingyao carefully asked, Master, is disciple really going to practice the 99's mysteries? Chen Ming handed the 99's mysteries to Zhuo Qingyao and said, take a look first. Zhuo Qingyao took it and hesitated for a moment before opening it. At first, she was a bit apprehensive, but after reading a part of the scripture, she became fascinated. While reading the scripture, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth naturally gathered around her. Then, Chen Ming heard a pop. Zhuo Qingyao was already at the second level of Daos sense realm, how is this possible? Tell me, do you really have a chance to defeat the protagonist? I'm just taking a look. Her cultivation has already broken through before she even started. Isn't this too obvious? The system lady's voice sounded. Ding. Zhuo Qingyao has broken through to the second level of Daos sense realm. Reward, 20 merits. It turned out that disciples also received merits for breaking through. When I return to the lustrous King Mountain, I'll see how powerful these merits are. Zhuo Qingyao sensed that she had broken through and opened her eyes to look at Chen Ming, beaming. Master, it seems that I can really practice the 99's mysteries. Master is truly an expert. I shouldn't have doubted you. Chen Ming coughed. That's natural. With Master's current realm, I can naturally see through everything in the world. It's just a small matter, so there's no need to be surprised. Since you can practice the cultivation method, go ahead and practice. Zhuo Qingyao naturally went to practice happily. Chen Ming finally had some peace and quiet. He brewed a cup of jade guanyin, which even emperors couldn't drink. Accompanied by the fragrance of the tea, he lay on a rattan chair and basked in the sun, feeling very comfortable. You might ask Chen Ming why he was so idle, why didn't he cultivate? Is cultivation a main mission in the cultivation world? As an NPC, as the master of the main character, he just had to follow the main character's plot. He just had to watch the main character show off, slap his face, and brag that the main character was a one-in-a-million genius. Stealing the main character's limelight? Was he tired of living? Cultivation was something that would naturally rise when it was time to rise. Just let nature take its course. If the plot didn't let you rise, then no matter how hard you cultivated, it would be useless. If the plot did let you rise, then you could break through under any circumstances. Sorry, but Chen Ming had already seen through everything. Li Chongying followed behind the sect master, followed by 100 doctors. They rushed into Chen Ming's courtyard. The sect master had a good relationship with his grandfather. It could even be said that they had gone through life and death together. He was counting on Chen Ming to take over the Myriad Sword sect. He didn't want Chen Ming to cause any trouble. The sect master was nearing the end of his lifespan. At this critical moment, he didn't want anything to happen to Chen Ming. He stopped Li Chongying's description and hurriedly brought 100 doctors up the mountain. The sect master's hair and beard were all white, and he was wearing a white robe. When he saw Chen Ming leisurely drinking tea, he hurriedly asked, Elder Chen, are you all right? Chen Ming had just accepted a disciple who looked like the main character. He was in a good mood. How could anything happen to him? I'm fine. Why do you ask, sect master? The sect leader was serious. Chen Ming, you will be the sect leader in the future. You must take good care of your disciples. Although you were careless yesterday and took in a poor disciple, you can't let her cultivate a cultivation method that will only bring disaster to her. If this spreads, your reputation won't be good. Chen Ming's eyebrows twitched. So that's what he was talking about. Sect master, I didn't want to kill Qingyao. Li Chongying advised, Elder Chen, teaching a disciple isn't a one-time thing. It's your first time teaching a disciple, so don't be impatient. You have to walk the path of cultivation step by step. The sect master waved his hand and said, all of you, go and check if Elder Chen is injured. Did he cultivate too quickly and go berserk? More than 100 doctors swarmed over, scaring Chen Ming into standing up. Sect master, I'm really fine. The sect master said, if something happens to you, how am I going to explain it to your grandfather? I don't care about that anymore. Give me a good check. At this moment, Xianxia skipped into the courtyard and happily shouted, Master, Master, I broke through to the 3rd level of Dao Sense Realm. Sect Master, Li Chongying, ding. Xianxia broke through to the 3rd level of Dao Sense Realm. Reward, 30 merits. Chen Ming thought to himself that she was indeed worthy of being called the main character. The speed of her breakthrough was too unreasonable. Look, there's nothing wrong with her. The sect leader carefully observed Xianxia and did not find any problems. Could it be that Qingyao can really master the 99 Mysteries art? The sect master looked at Li Chongying meaningfully and said, Elderly, come with me. Li Chongying was speechless. The sect leader looked at Chen Ming and smiled gently, well, Chen Ming, just pretend that I didn't come here. Alright, that's it. Qingyao, in a month's competition, you have to do your best to win some face for me. Don't ruin my reputation. After saying that, he grabbed Li Chongying's ear and walked away. Li Chongying's screams could be heard, sect leader, I'm over 200 years old, leave me some face. Ouch ouch ouch, Xianxia did not know what was going on. She looked at the 2 white-haired old men and felt strange. Master, are they okay? Ding, triggered a mission, assist Xianxia to win 1st place in the competition. Reward, 1000 merits. F*CK, it's a big mission. 1000 merits, that's really something. Chen Ming shook his head and said, don't worry about them. I'll teach you another set of sword techniques. There are 2 sets of sword techniques in my palace. One of them is the Lustrous King Sword and the other is the Jade Maiden Sword. The 2 sets of sword techniques complement each other. If the 2 swords are used together, there's nowhere you can't go. I'll teach you now. The 2 swords were used together. Xianxia blushed and nodded obediently. Chen Ming thought to himself, I'm teaching you a sword technique, why are you blushing? However, Chen Ming did not care too much. He scanned his surroundings and after confirming that there were no outsiders, he unsheathed the 5-feet-long lustrous king sword on his back. The Jade Maiden Sword art was of the same origin as the lustrous king sword. Although Chen Ming did not cultivate much, it was enough to teach Xianxia. The white lustrous king sword twirled in Chen Ming's hand, and in an instant, there were dozens of sword flowers dancing in the air. The white-clothed Chen Ming revealed a rare serious expression. The spotlessly white lustrous king sword in his hand seemed to have stirred up a storm. His white clothes fluttered, and the sword light was biting cold. Xianxia's small eyes were practically sparkling. Master is so handsome. After performing a set of sword techniques, Chen Ming looked at Xianxia and asked, how was it? Xianxia blurted out, so handsome. Chen Ming's eyelids twitched. I know it is very handsome, but there is no need to say such common sense. How much of this Jade Maiden Sword art do you remember? Xianxia blushed. Master is so handsome that it is easy to distract others. She was only focused on her elegant master just now. Xianxia thought for a moment. Master, it was too fast. Qingyao did not remember it. Chen Ming thought to himself that a little girl who had never practiced a sword technique before would not be able to learn a profound sword technique like the Jade Maiden Sword art that could condense the sword heart. Oh right, can't I use merits to comprehend a technique? How can I comprehend it? Chen Ming asked in his heart. I want to comprehend the Jade Maiden Sword art. Ding. Comprehending the Jade Maiden Sword art to the Sword Chi realm requires 10 merits. Since the Lustrous King Sword art has already condensed the sword heart, the 2 sword techniques complement each other. Actually, it requires 5 merits. Comprehending the Jade Maiden Sword art to the Sword Heart realm requires 100 merits. Since the Lustrous King Sword art has already condensed the sword heart, the 2 sword techniques complement each other. Actually, it requires 50 merits. Comprehending the Jade Maiden sword art to the one with the sword realm requires 1,000 merits. His lustrous king sword art had not reached the one with the sword realm, so it was not reduced by half. Chen Ming looked at his status panel. Chen Ming, Realm, Dao Initiation Realm 2nd Stage. Constitution, Limitless Dao Body. Cultivation Method, Dragon Form Technique, total of 9 levels, Level 6. Cultivating to Level 9 will condense a Dao Seed. Magic Art, Lustrous King Sword Art, condensing the Monarch Dao Sword Heart. Dao Seed, none. Disciple, Xianxia. Merits, 60 points. Now he only had 60 merits. He could comprehend the Jade Maiden sword art to the Sword Heart realm in one go. Chen Ming said in his heart, comprehend the Jade Maiden sword art to the Sword Qi realm. Ding. Please choose between direct comprehension or extrapolation. Chen Ming asked in his heart, what is the difference? Ding. Direct comprehension will allow you to comprehend instantly. Extrapolation will allow you to practice the sword technique. Chen Ming said in his heart, extrapolation. Then Chen Ming looked at Xianxia and said, watch carefully. Raising the lustrous king sword in his hand, Chen Ming's eyes flashed with all the sword moves of the Jade Maiden sword. Each move echoed in his mind, and each move gradually became clear in Chen Ming's eyes. When Chen Ming attacked, not only did the sword dance, but there was also an ingenious artistic conception. Chen Ming only raised his sword, but Xianxia's eyes could not move away. In her eyes, the sword moves were divided into each movement. There was an indescribable charm that made Xianxia's mind completely immersed. After a slow execution of the Jade Maiden sword art, a green Jade Maiden sword qi appeared between Chen Ming's fingers. So this is the Jade Maiden sword qi. As expected, it complements my lustrous king sword. It is extremely ingenious. Chen Ming looked at Xianxia, who had just awoken from her state of mind, and asked, now, how much do you understand? Xianxia said, I seem to understand a little. Chen Ming handed the lustrous king sword in his hand to Xianxia. He suddenly realized that his lustrous king sword seemed to be about the same height as Xianxia. Chen Ming really did not dare to imagine a little girl waving a sword that was about the same height as him. It was too beautiful. Chen Ming scratched his head and said, stay here and recall the Jade Maiden sword art that I just executed. I will be back soon. After walking to the back mountain of the lustrous king mountain, Chen Ming brandished his sword and chopped down a green bamboo. He wanted to carve it into the shape of a bamboo sword. After busying himself for an hour, he accidentally left a cut on his palm from the bamboo sword. He returned to the courtyard and handed the newly made bamboo sword to Xianxia. Oh, use this to practice your sword first. When I have time, I will make a trip back to the king's mansion and retrieve the Jade Maiden sword for you. When he handed it to Xianxia, Xianxia took the bamboo sword. Chen Ming's eyebrows twitched. His palm still hurt a little. Xianxia noticed the bloodstains on the bamboo sword. Master, you were injured just now? Chen Ming chuckled. How could that be? Master is an expert. How could I be injured from carving a bamboo sword? This is all because I encountered a demonic beast and fought with it. However, there is no need to worry. Master has already executed that demonic beast on the spot. Xianxia saw through it but did not expose it. Since young, she had been an orphan. Master was the first person who treated her so well. Master is the best. Xianxia took the bamboo sword and began practicing. The bamboo sword in her small hand waved around. Although the sword art was a little rusty, it was still somewhat similar. Chen Ming had to admit that there was indeed no reason for cheating. Her comprehension ability was 1,000 times better than his own. Of course, it might have something to do with the process of his epiphany. However, he had to admit that this little girl's talent was not bad. At night, Xianxia changed into a new set of clothes sent by a servant girl. She looked at the bamboo sword on the table. There was a scratch on the bamboo sword. Xianxia reached out and touched the scratch. Her heart ached. She wrapped the bamboo sword tightly in her old clothes and carefully put it under her quilt. Xianxia picked up a hatchet and walked towards the back of the mountain. Master gave me this bamboo sword. It would be bad if I damaged it. In the courtyard, Chen Ming was lying on a rattan chair and swinging his legs. Lao Fang came in and said to Chen Ming, "Your Highness, Miss Xianxia just went out." Chen Ming said, "Don't be so strict. Relax a bit and let Qingyao come and go as she pleases. You know, a genius always has her secrets. You need to give her some space to play. Don't forget to pretend you didn't see her. Act real." Lao Fang thought that the crown prince was really meddlesome these days. This old servant understands. In the middle of the night, Chen Ming suddenly rolled over and climbed out of bed. He roared, "Who is this bastard? Instead of sleeping in the middle of the night, he is chopping bamboo in the back of the mountain. Can't you let me sleep? Don't let me know who you are. If I find out, I will skin you alive." Xingshan City. The Prince Regent's flag fluttered in the wind. 10,000 armored tigers stirred up a cloud of dust on the plains. The earth rumbled as if it was trembling. General Wang, who was leading the charge, looked at Xingshan City in the distance. According to our investigation, the prince's eldest disciple, the younger brother of Miss Xianxia, was captured by the city lord as a slave. One of the generals behind General Wang asked, "General Wang, the Prince Regent asked us to seal off the news. We're good at killing people, but we don't know how to seal off the news." Suddenly, a caravan trembled and stopped in front of the army. Looking at the ferocious flying tiger army, the leader of the caravan was shocked. "No way, I only flirted with a little girl yesterday. I haven't even touched her yet. Is there a need to send 10,000 flying tiger army soldiers to capture me?" General Wang rode his tiger to the leader of the caravan and asked, "Are you going to Xingshan City to do business?" The leader of the caravan nodded. Yes, yes, yes." General Wang continued to ask, "Then do you know that Zhuo Qingyao is the disciple of the Prince Regent?" The leader of the caravan was shocked and shook his head. "No, I don't know." General Wang nodded with satisfaction. "Very good, you don't know. Then you can go to Xingshan City. Let's go." The leader of the caravan was stunned and led the caravan into Xingshan City. General Wang looked at the general beside him and smiled. "See? Let those who don't know go. They don't know anyway. Understand?" The general nodded and said, "I understand. I'll do it right away. I won't let anyone who knows enter Xingshan City." Within 3 days, the streets and alleys of Xingshan City. Did you know? There's a girl named Zhuo Qingyao who got lucky and became the disciple of the Prince Regent. I don't know who this Zhuo Qingyao is. She's so lucky. Isn't that so? What kind of person is the crown prince? He's the next headmaster of the Wanjian house, and the most beloved grandson of the royal regent. It's said that the royal regent is preparing to pass the throne to the crown prince. Rumor has it that His Highness even sent 10,000 soldiers of the Flying Tiger Army to inform the Yan Kingdom. It can be seen that His Highness really likes this beloved disciple. In the manner of the city lord of Qingshan. The mayor held a glass of wine in his hand and looked at a painting on the wall. Behind him, the leader of the caravan said, "Yes, Mayor. General Wang of the Flying Tiger Troop came to ask me if I knew that Zhuo Qingyao had become the crown prince's disciple." The city lord suddenly said, "Do you know how a nameless person like me became the city lord?" The caravan leader shook his head. "I don't know." The mayor revealed a knowing smile and said, "That's because I can understand the intentions of the higher-ups. In my opinion, the higher-ups' intentions couldn't be more obvious this time. Xingshan City and Miss Zhuo Qingyao's name only differ by one character. His Highness the Crown Prince has accepted a disciple. Such a big event must be celebrated, so we have to comply with the wishes of the higher-ups. It's decided, from today onwards, Xingshan City will be renamed Qingyao City." The leader of the caravan showed an expression of admiration. "You're so wise, Mayor." The mayor drank the wine in his glass in high spirits. He looked at the boy beside him and called, "Little Zhuozi, bring me some wine." Little Zhuozi looked to be about 10 years old. He served the mayor with wine, his eyes showing a trace of fanciful thoughts. He didn't know where his sister had run off to. The siblings' parents died when they were young. They didn't even have a name. They had always called each other brother and sister. No one would think of the names of the two beggars. In 3 days, Zhuo Qingyao was already at the 4th level of Daos Sense Realm. Her speed was still slower than before, and Chen Ming found that it wasn't because of cheats. It was because Zhuo Qingyao's meridians had been broken into 81 segments and fused into her body. Thus, while others cultivated to temper 10 meridians, she cultivated to temper her entire body. The reason why she was able to cultivate so quickly was partly because of the accumulation of her previous cultivation. After obtaining the correct cultivation method, it was like being enlightened. Another reason was that Zhuo Qingyao was using spirit stones that only Dao initiation realm cultivators could use, so her speed was very fast. Chen Ming only had one disciple position right now. If he wanted to increase his strength, he could only focus on Zhuo Qingyao. Zhuo Qingyao skipped over to Chen Ming and asked, "Master, why do I feel like my cultivation speed has slowed down these days?" Old Feng almost vomited blood when he heard this. "Madam, you've only broken through to the 4th level of Dao Sense Realm a day ago, and you're already thinking about breaking through again? Everyone else would take years to break through a layer, but you're good, using days as a unit of measurement. If your speed is considered slow, then everyone else would have to dig a hole and bury themselves in it, so as to not embarrass themselves in front of the world." However, Old Feng glanced at Chen Ming and felt that Chen Ming would definitely give her the correct cultivation guidance. Then he heard Chen Ming leisurely say, "If you feel that your cultivation speed has slowed down, then it can only mean that you're not good at drawing hatred." Zhuo Qingyao, Old Feng, what a joke. Which protagonist would cultivate peacefully on the mountain? What's a protagonist's specialty? Causing trouble. As the saying goes, protagonists who don't cause trouble aren't good geniuses. Protagonists are always hunted down and then break through in battle. That's how protagonists usually do things, but now there seems to be a problem. Why haven't I seen any small bosses or mobs come knocking after so many days, leaving the confused Zhuo Qingyao to cultivate by herself? Chen Ming looked at Old Feng and asked, "That blue destiny sword physique guy, if he's so dissatisfied with Qingyao, why hasn't he come to the lustrous King Mountain to cause trouble?" Old Feng said, "Your Highness' cultivation is high and your swordsmanship is outstanding. Ordinary people wouldn't dare to cause trouble at the lustrous King Mountain." Chen Ming patted his head. "Old Feng, you're right. It seems that being too strong is also a mistake." Chen Ming immediately stood up. "Old Feng, pack up. We're going out. On the notice board at the foot of the lustrous King Mountain, I've decided to return to the lustrous King Mountain to retrieve the fairy sword. The guards need to protect me and the maids need to take care of me. Therefore, for the next half a month, only Qingyao will be on the lustrous King Mountain. There won't be a second person." At the foot of the lustrous King Mountain, Chen Ming pretended to look at Zhuo Qingyao reluctantly and shouted at the myriad sword sect, "Qingyao, master needs to go out for a while. I won't be back for the next half a month. You have to cultivate seriously on the lustrous King Mountain. Don't neglect your cultivation." Chen Ming shouted once, but the myriad sword sect still didn't hear him. He shouted more than 10 times before he stopped. "Qingyao, after master leaves, you will be the only one on the mountain. If other people come up the mountain at this time, master won't be able to protect you. Your cultivation isn't high now, so you won't be their match. If they bully you with numbers or secretly poison you, I remember there's a poison called the formless powder. It's colorless and odorless, so it's hard to guard against it. You have to be careful." Zhuo Qingyao looked at her unreliable master with a black face. "Master, Qingyao is here." Chen Ming turned around and gave a few instructions before leading the large group down the mountain. After walking for 2 hours, Chen Ming looked at Old Feng and asked, "Have you spread the news?" Old Feng nodded. "This old servant has arranged everything. Now, even a dog in the myriad sword sect knows that we've left. Furthermore, I've spread the news that His Highness doesn't like Miss Zhuo Qingyao as a disciple. As long as someone can defeat Miss Zhuo Qingyao, His Highness will take a fancy to that person." Chen Ming patted Old Feng's shoulder with satisfaction. "Well done, Old Feng." Old Feng silently mourned for Zhuo Qingyao in his heart. How did she end up with a master like Chen Ming who would cheat his disciple? He was afraid that other people wouldn't know how to deal with Zhuo Qingyao, so he told them loudly and even knew the name of the poison. Chen Ming suddenly stopped and said, "Old Feng, are you sure you've arranged a backup to protect Qingyao?" Old Feng nodded. Chen Ming was still worried. As the saying goes, a master is like a father. As a father, it was a bit too much for him to cheat his daughter like this. As a new father, he should be more concerned. Forget it, I'll go back and keep an eye on her. Remember to bring the fairy sword back. Chen Ming activated his cultivation and used his magic power to cover his body. He quietly returned to the lustrous King Mountain. Chen Ming strolled back to the lustrous King Mountain. He sensed that the little girl was practicing her sword at the waist of the mountain. It seemed that the little monsters had yet to arrive. Chen Ming strolled into the little girl's room. There was a 9/9 Mysteries manual on the table. Chen Ming skimmed through it. He heard that this manual often killed people. Although he felt that the little girl would have no problem cultivating it, he was still a bit worried. He might as well comprehend it. After all, with his current physique, he needed at least 3,000 manuals. Chen Ming said in his heart, comprehend the 9/9 Mysteries. Ding. Comprehending the 81st layer of the 9/9 Mysteries requires 10,000 merits. Host currently has 95 merits and can comprehend the 24th layer of the 9/9 Mysteries. Will you comprehend it? Comprehend it. Directly comprehend it. In just a moment, Chen Ming could feel that his body was clearly different. His physical strength seemed to be several times stronger than before. So this 9/9 Mysteries cultivates the body. Looks like I need to get some ginseng for the little girl to chew on. She's going to eat all of my stock. The current Chen Ming didn't even need to use magic power. Just relying on his physical strength, he could match a second-stage Dao initiation realm cultivator at full strength. However, comprehending the 9/9 Mysteries in its entirety was extremely difficult. It actually required 10,000 merits. As expected of a manual that only protagonists could cultivate. After cultivating the 9/9 Mysteries, Chen Ming also discovered that it wasn't the strongest Dao sense realm cultivation method. 9/9 returned to one-step transcendence. In other words, after cultivating the 81st layer, one could directly break through to transcendence. As expected, this was a treatment only protagonists could enjoy. Chen Ming thought for a bit, then picked up a brush and wrote down his comprehension of the 9/9 Mysteries next to the manual. This way, the little girl's cultivation would be faster. Myriad Sword Sect. A group of new female disciples were discussing, did you hear? News says that Elder Chen doesn't like Shui Qingyao at all. As long as you defeat Shui Qingyao, you'll be favored by Elder Chen. Yes, I heard that Elder Chen has returned to the regent's residence. Only Shui Qingyao is on the lustrous King Mountain now. Why don't we disguise ourselves, cover our faces, and go up the mountain? We'll teach that trash Shui Qingyao a lesson and let her know that she doesn't deserve to be Elder Chen's disciple. This little sister is indeed wise. Shui Qingyao and Elder Chen are together every day. Who knows when that little bitch will climb into Elder Chen's bed? Humph, beauty, you speak as if no one has it. Elder Chen is such a dashing person, how could this little hussy be a match for him? That's right, Elder Chen is currently in the prime of his life. This little bitch has a chance to get close to him first. Lustrous King Mountain. Chen Ming had finally finished writing down his comprehension and was strolling around the lustrous King Mountain. But when he was halfway up the mountain, he heard a woman's voice, Shui Qingyao, you're scheming to get close to Elder Chen for money. Here's 10,000 taels of gold. Leave Elder Chen. Chen Ming sat on a towering ancient tree and looked at the ground with interest. Opposite Shui Qingyao was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, Li Qing'er. She looked to be in her late teens and wore a green dress. She was rather pretty. Shui Qingyao took out a snow ginseng from her pocket and chewed it before she exclaimed, wow, 10,000 taels of gold. Li Qing'er revealed a look of disdain and said, humph, you're truly ignorant. 10,000 taels of gold and you're making a fuss. Shui Qingyao timidly asked, I've only heard of gold in the past, but I've never seen a real one. How much is 10,000 taels of gold? Is it very valuable? Li Qing'er revealed an arrogant expression and said, you're truly a bumpkin. You don't even know the value of 10,000 taels of gold. Let me tell you, 10,000 taels of gold can easily buy a street and feed 1,000 families for a year. Do you see that snow ginseng in your hand? 10,000 taels of gold can buy a root. It was enough to buy a single strand of hair. After that, Shui Qingyao bit off more than half of the snow ginseng and said with a trembling voice, that bite of yours is worth at least 50,000 taels of gold." Although Li Qing'er's family was wealthy, she had never seen anyone chewing on a snow ginseng as if it was a carrot. Li Qing'er suddenly felt that something was amiss. Competing with Chen Ming in terms of wealth was just asking for humiliation. Chen Ming revealed a look of disdain and said, "Sigh, the mobs nowadays aren't too good. Their quality is too low, and they don't even have the slightest desire to fight. Instead, they make me feel pity for them. I reckon that they're just passers-by who were killed by the main character in their first appearance." Chen Ming was greatly disappointed, but he soon said, "But they're all willing to sacrifice their faces for the main character's great cause. Furthermore, they might even sacrifice their lives for the main character's great cause. Such mobs are worthy of respect. Li Qing'er isn't just a mob, she's also a hero." Li Qing'er revealed a look of anger and said, "She schemed to become Elder Chen's disciple because of Elder Chen's wealth. I'll help Elder Chen purge her." Li Qing'er was already at the 7th level of Daos Sense Realm, so defeating Zhuo Qingyao shouldn't be a problem. In just a short while, Zhuo Qingyao was covered in injuries from Li Qing'er's attacks. Zhuo Qingyao also knew that she wasn't Li Qing'er's opponent and wanted to escape. Both sides chased each other until they reached the Repent Cliff. At this time, one might ask why Chen Ming didn't help Zhuo Qingyao. No. At this time, one should focus on the plot. Otherwise, one might ruin the main character's opportunity. The Repent Cliff, as the name implied, was a cliff. Chen Ming couldn't help but say, "I almost forgot. If Qingyao's cultivation can't be raised, she can jump off the cliff." As the main character, there was nothing that couldn't be solved by jumping off a cliff. If there was, then jump twice. If there were no magical treasures, then there were treasures left behind by Dao comprehending realm cultivators. If there were no cultivation techniques, then there were cultivation techniques left behind by immortals. If there were no immortal techniques, then there were immortals who were about to die. If there were no girls, then there were pure, gullible, cute, big-breasted, and alluring, gullible. Everything could be found at the bottom of the cliff. While he was pondering, Zhuo Qingyao was thrown off the cliff by Li Qing'er. Chen Ming hid in the clouds and followed after her. Sure enough, after Zhuo Qingyao fell off the cliff, she grabbed onto a green vine and fell into a cave that was covered by the vine. Zhuo Qingyao's surprised voice could be heard from the cave. "Eh? This is the jade lingji mushroom. Master said that it's a rare spiritual herb that can't be compared to snow ginseng. After consuming this jade lingji mushroom, not only can I recover from my injuries, but my cultivation will also increase greatly. Li Qing'er, just you wait. When I leave the Repent Cliff, I will definitely seek justice from you." Hearing Zhuo Qingyao's voice, Chen Ming felt relieved. Seeing that Zhuo Qingyao was fine, Chen Ming also felt relieved and jumped onto the cliff. At this time, Li Qing'er was already far away, and a black-clothed man was standing on the cliff. That black-clothed man looked at Chen Ming and smiled. "Everyone is saying that the Yan country's genius, Chen Ming, is taking in disciples to prove his Dao. I didn't expect that your highness would have already seen the door to the Dao comprehending realm at such a young age. If you can become a grand cultivator, then wouldn't the Yan country be like a tiger that has grown wings?" Chen Ming looked at the black-cloaked man and held his forehead. *CK, there's actually a background story. The black-cloaked man was stunned. "What? Background story?" Chen Ming replied, "The so-called background story is something that happened when the main character was still weak. In other words, it's the grudges between NPCs like us. Without this, how would the main character be divided into factions? Where would the main character find monsters to fight in the future?" The black-cloaked man was baffled. "Could it be that your highness has lost his mind?" Chen Ming drew the lustrous king sword from his back and pointed it at the black-cloaked man. The two experts looked at each other on the cliff as though they were fighting on the peak of the Forbidden City. Chen Ming sighed. "Stop talking and let's follow the story." The black-cloaked man did not waste words. "Since you want to die, I'll give you a quick death." The black-cloaked man turned around and fled. Chen Ming patted his head. "I almost forgot. These mobs only have a retarded aura when they are next to the main character. That's why they would throw their lives away even if they can't beat them. As an NPC, I don't have this kind of treatment. Luckily, I was set to be one of the strongest in the younger generation." Chen Ming opened his hand and spun the lustrous king sword. Go. The mottled sword energy shook Chen Ming's white robes. The lustrous king sword streaked across the sky like a ray of light. The black-cloaked man turned around and a wolf-fang dagger appeared in his hand. He wanted to block the lustrous king sword. At this moment, the black-cloaked man roared, "What are you waiting for?" Chen Ming could feel that something was wrong. Mud rose from the ground. Chen Ming's eyes flashed, earth-burrowing technique. It turned out that they were not here to spy on him, but to assassinate him. The black-cloaked man let go of the lustrous king sword so that the other person could assassinate him. From the churning mud, a grey-cloaked man jumped up and slashed at Chen Ming. "Ha ha ha, the head of the crown prince is priceless. Today, I, Qiu Sandao, will become famous." Chen Ming leaned to the side and dodged Qiu Sandao's attack. The wind created by the blade caused Chen Ming's hair to dance wildly. The blade energy swept across the stone wall, creating a 1-meter-long ravine. Qiu Sandao laughed, "You dodged the first attack. Let's see what you can do next. What can a sword cultivator do to me?" Chen Ming glanced at the black-cloaked man. He was definitely at the first stage of the Dao initiation realm. Qiu Sandao was known to be an invincible assassin at the first stage of the Dao initiation realm. In the entire Yan kingdom, 9 Dao initiation realm cultivators had died at his hands. Chen Ming smiled, "I was wondering who it was. So it's someone from the murdering temple." Qiu Sandao laughed, "So what if you know? There's no need to look anymore. The backup you arranged has already been held back by the third hall master. Today, you will definitely die." Qiu Sandao charged towards Chen Ming again. At this moment, the lustrous king sword was still in the process of returning. Chen Ming aimed a kick at Qiu Sandao's head. Qiu Sandao laughed and said, "You're just a Dharma cultivator. You want to fight me with your physical body? You're courting death." Qiu Sandao didn't even bother to dodge. Then, he heard a cracking sound. It was the sound of his skull shattering. His body was sent flying 20 feet away by Chen Ming's violent kick. A line of blood flowed from his forehead. His eyes were wide open. He couldn't be more dead. The man in black looked at Chen Ming and said in surprise, "This is impossible. I've never heard that you were an ascetic cultivator. How is your physical strength so strong?" Chen Ming chuckled and said, "I learned it this morning." The man in black suddenly realized, as expected of the regent's grandson. "You actually hid it for so long without anyone noticing." Chen Ming's face was full of black lines. "You don't believe me when I tell you the truth. But who cares? Why does a dead man need to know so much?" The lustrous king sword returned to his hand. Chen Ming leaped up and flew towards the man in black. The lustrous king sword in his hand emitted sword energy in all directions. He attacked with the most ferocious move of the lustrous king sword. World domination. This move was huge. It was a move that gathered all the strength in one's body. The man in black raised the wolf-fang dagger in his hand to block. With a bang, sparks flew. The right hand of the man in black that was holding the wolf-fang dagger was already bleeding. Although the man in black managed to block Chen Ming's world domination, his right hand was still trembling. Chen Ming was like a ferocious beast in human form as he leaped towards the man in black. Every step he took left a large hole in the ground. With the lustrous king sword in his hand, Chen Ming slashed at the man in black again. The man in black raised the wolf-fang dagger to block, but his right hand was already injured and couldn't block it. With a cracking sound, his arm was broken. Chen Ming flew up and kicked the man in black's chest. The man in black coughed up blood and fell to the ground without any strength to fight back. Chen Ming walked to the side of the man in black and swung his sword to cut off the man's head. Then he went to the dead Qiu Sandao and beheaded him. "And, if there's a chance in the future, I'll have to tell Xianxia to remember to finish him off." As a villain, playing dead and ambushing others was a common occurrence. Ding. Due to the murdering temple under the control of the Yan Kingdom's imperial family failing to assassinate the Yan Kingdom's regent, a background storyline has been triggered. There are still 3 years before the Great World Opening. Birth chart, identity, reputation, affects identity, spiritual knowledge, increases realm, aura. Chen Ming had a bad premonition. At this moment, Chen Ming opened his panel again. Chen Ming, reputation, 5 identity, cannon fodder, reputation, 5 realm, second stage of Dao initiation realm physique, limitless Dao body cultivation technique, dragon form technique, 9 levels, level 6, level 9 forms Dao seed, 9 mysteries technique, level 24, level 72 forms Dao seed, technique, lustrous king sword, benevolent sword heart Dao seed, nun disciple, Xianxia merits, 60 points. Spiritual knowledge, 0 aura, nun birth chart, 1 year after the Great World Opening, in the Demon Subjugation Conference, die at the hands of the demon sect's great disciple Yamo. It didn't matter if he didn't look, but as soon as he did, his heart sank. His class was cannon fodder, not even an NPC. And what the hell was this fate? Why the hell did he want to stay in the Myriad Sword sect and wait for the world to open so he could die at Yamo's hands? This kind of thinking wasn't dangerous. It wasn't good at all. What kind of birth chart was this? It was a script written for him by this world. Moreover, according to his current reputation, according to the novel, the great disciple of the demon sect would use the demon overturning the heavens and kill 13 righteous faction cultivators. It was the kind of cannon fodder that didn't even reveal their names or faces. They weren't even considered passers-by. No, according to the script, he only had 4 years left to live. He had to think of a way to change it. Ding. Triggered a storyline challenge mission. The angry regent's crown prince has been assassinated. Only a ruthless counterattack can wash away his shame. Destroy the murdering temple. Rewards will be given according to the level of destruction. This was a storyline mission. Rewards will be given according to the level of destruction. Could it be that completing this mission would give him reputation? At this time, a middle-aged man wearing a tiger's robe came out of the forest. It was Wang Meng, the backup he left for Xianxia. Seeing that Chen Ming was fine, Wang Meng quickly cupped his hands and said, "This subordinate came late to save you. Please forgive me, Crown Prince." Chen Ming reached out to pick up the black-clothed man's mask and wipe the blood off his hands, dig a hole and bury them. Also, summon the relentless Tiger Guard. Since the murdering temple doesn't want to live, then there's no need to keep them alive. Wang Meng was stunned. Chen Ming asked, "Why, is there a problem?" Wang Meng shook his head, "There's no problem. The Crown Prince naturally has the right to mobilize the relentless Tiger Guard. But the Crown Prince is a little different from before. In the past, the Crown Prince wouldn't be so ruthless." Chen Ming laughed, "Do you think I don't know what those 2 old men are planning? My father is still alive, but the position of Crown Prince is mine. Grandfather clearly wants my father to be the Emperor of Yan Kingdom. If I can't even see this, then I'm blind. Since he wants to be the Emperor of Yan Kingdom, then there can't be any resistance. In Yan Kingdom. Do you think this is the truth? No, he just doesn't want to be cannon fodder." Chen Ming was riding on a ferocious tiger with a bamboo hat on his head, reading the dossiers on the murdering temple collected by the relentless Tiger Guard. The murdering temple is an assassin organization that lurks in the shadows. There are about 3,000 recorded assassins, 14 of whom are above Dao initiation realm. The murdering temple lord is at the 3rd stage of Dao initiation realm and cultivates killing techniques. He has killed more than 10 Dao initiation realm cultivators, including 2 at the 3rd stage. Murdering temple's headquarters, Jiangwang Tomb. The reason he was able to obtain such detailed information was because there were people from the regent's residence in the murdering temple. Chen Ming glanced at Wang Meng. Wang Meng, inform the shadow guards in the murdering temple to find a way to gather all the hall lords at the headquarters. That'll be difficult. Chen Ming smiled, whether it's hard or not is his problem. I only want results. I only ask if he can do it. Wang Meng cupped his fists, I can do it. Chen Ming nodded, good. Also, how many flying tiger troops can I mobilize? Wang Meng replied, 30,000 at most. Chen Ming pondered for a bit, use the reason of changing the guard to mobilize 3,000 men from each of the 10 towns. Spread out and make sure there are no spies watching you. Disguise yourselves as traveling merchants and gather near Jiangwang Tomb. Also, make sure to block any news about the Yan imperial family. Inform old Feng to return to the regent's residence with great fanfare. Make sure everyone believes that I'm back. From now on, all my actions will be classified to the highest level. Only grandfather and father have the right to know. The Relentless Tiger Guard was a cultivation faction under the regent's residence. They carried out missions in the shadows and were all at the Dao initiation realm. This time, Chen Ming had mobilized more than half of them, a total of 30. If it was a contest of power, then the murdering temple had no chance of winning. But Chen Ming's mission was to wipe it out. Wiping it out didn't mean defeating it. Wiping it out meant that there would be no more murdering temple's remnants to stir up trouble. He had to kill every last one of the murdering temple's main characters, making sure it had no power to rise again. Moreover, the higher the mission rating, the better the rewards. The murdering temple had been active in the shadows of Yen for so many years without any reason. After arranging all this, Chen Ming dismounted from the tiger. The tiger was the symbol of the regent's residence in Yen. Chen Ming ordered people to take the tiger mounts away. Then, he and the 30 relentless tiger guards headed for Jiangwang Tomb, the main hall of the regent's residence. Although it was called the Prince Regent's Mansion, it was no different from the imperial court. The civil and military officials in the Yen kingdom had to attend the imperial court twice. Once was to discuss some trivial matters in the imperial palace of the Yen kingdom, and the other was to discuss important matters in the Prince Regent's mansion. The old regent had a lot of power. Half of Yen was under his control. His name was Chen Wang, a name he didn't hide at all. At this moment, he received a secret letter and opened it to read. There were only 2 people in the hall of the Prince Regent's mansion. They were the 2 most powerful people in the Yen kingdom, the Prince Regent's mansion's old prince Chen Wang, and the old prince's eldest son, the great general Chen Yuhu. Chen Yuhu was a middle-aged man with a square face. He wore a golden robe with 9 pythons and looked very powerful. He looked at the secret letter in the old prince's hand and smiled helplessly. This little bastard used the highest level secret letter again. Speaking of which, can't this little bastard use the highest level secret letter to do something serious? Isn't it just taking in a disciple? Is there a need to notify the entire country? He even changed Qingshan City's name to Qingyao City. He really likes this disciple of his. I wonder what kind of trouble he's going to cause this time. The regent's furrowed brows relaxed after reading the letter. It's serious this time. Chen Yuhu's expression suddenly became serious. What is this little bastard doing? The regent said, according to Ming-er, the murdering temple is the fangs and claws of the imperial family. They've already made a move against Ming-er and Ming-er is preparing to make a move against them. Chen Yuhu narrowed his eyes like a ferocious tiger. No wonder they're still able to hold on after we sealed off their income. So it's because of the imperial family's blood. However, the murdering temple isn't that easy to deal with. If we were to fight them fair and square, I'd still be able to destroy 10 of them. They're just a bunch of rats, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. That's why we've never shown any intention of eliminating them. Once we alert them, we won't be able to grasp their movements so easily. The old prince nodded. That's why Ming-er made such a big fuss about taking in a disciple. He wanted to deceive the murdering temple. What a big game of chess. He's been planning this for a long time without us knowing. It seems Ming-er has made some progress recently. Chen Yuhu smiled and said, it's fine if he doesn't do anything, but once he does, he'll stir up a storm. This brat has been living a peaceful life for so long, who would have thought that he would be the one to make a move? Since this little bastard has already made his move, let's put on a good show and attract the attention of the murdering temple. The regent laughed. Destroying the murdering temple is another arm of the Yen imperial family. How can I miss such a good opportunity? Men, pass down my orders. I'm going to patrol the borders. Chen Yuhu chuckled. Father, since you're going to patrol the borders, then I'll have to rebel. The regent didn't mind. Remember to make a big fuss and clean up the Yen imperial family spies in your army. 3 days later, the regent's only son, Chen Yuhu, took advantage of the regent's border patrol to lead an army of 100,000 to confront the regent. The news quickly spread throughout the country. Did you hear? The national general is rebelling against the regent. Who wouldn't be tempted by the regent's power? The regent's grandson is the heir, not the general. Of course the general won't give up. I'm afraid the father and son are just playing tricks. What tricks? There's a fight outside the city and more than 10,000 people have died. What? The war has already begun? Looks like the general is really going to rebel. Yan Imperial Palace. It wasn't easy being the emperor of Yan. He was just a puppet emperor of Qianwang. As an emperor, he could only control the entire palace. As an emperor, it was normal for him to frown, but he still had to put on a smile for Qianwang. Today, however, the emperor was very happy because he received a piece of news. Sitting on the throne, the emperor laughed. Qianwang, to think you would have such a day. I've waited for so many years and this day has finally come. He ordered all the secret forces under his command to gather information about Qianwang and Qin Yuhu. This time, when the two tigers fight, one of them will be injured, or even both of them will be injured. He ordered all the generals under Qin Yuhu's command to make them fight. We'll sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight, then reap the benefits. Suddenly, a guard walked into the main hall and reported, outside the main hall, there are 13 officials from the imperial court requesting to see you. The emperor smiled. His eyes shone brightly as if the whole world was back in his hands. Announce it, I want to discuss important matters with them. In an inn in a town near Jiangwang Tomb, Chen Ming, who was wearing a bamboo hat, picked up a muddy bowl and took a sip of tea. He listened to the people on the street talking about his father rebelling against his grandfather. He put down the teacup and said calmly, these two old things are really endless. Based on his understanding of his father and grandfather, would his father rebel? What kind of joke was this? His grandfather only had one son, how could he not pass the throne to his father? Someone asked if his father couldn't live longer than his grandfather and wanted to seize the throne. There were many such cases in history. The crown prince couldn't live longer than the emperor and died without becoming the emperor. How could there be a 60-year-old crown prince in this world? Not to mention, his father wasn't even the crown prince yet. So his father decided to rebel, but his grandfather couldn't cultivate while his father was a Dao initiation realm cultivator with a lifespan of 300 years. At this time, Wang Meng came in from outside and sat down beside Chen Ming, whispering, according to the news from the Murdering Temple's secret guards, the Murdering Temple only gathers in Jiangwang Tomb during the competition for the position of Hall Master. The secret guards report was approved by the Murdering Temple Master. Moreover, the Murdering Temple Master ordered all members of the Murdering Temple to head to Jiangwang Tomb. Chen Ming smiled, so that's what those two old things were planning. But isn't it just the Murdering Temple? Isn't this a bit too much? More than 10,000 people have already died. Wang Meng said, Your Highness, there is something you don't know. The general and the prince were just confronting each other. They didn't give the order to fight. Those who died in the battle didn't follow the general's order or the prince's order. These people were afraid that the general and the prince wouldn't fight. Chen Ming spat on the ground, those two old things played the imperial family like a fiddle, they're so evil. Wang Meng smiled, if the imperial family was smart, His Highness wouldn't have reached this point. However, the Murdering Temple seemed to have more than 3,000 people. According to the secret guards, these 3,000 people also had their own forces. When the time comes, 100,000 people would secretly gather at the Jiangwang Tomb. This was probably the hidden force of the Yan Kingdom's imperial family. They were waiting for the king and the great general to fight to the bitter end before using this force to defeat the king and the great general. According to the secret guard's report, he found a tunnel in Jiangwang Tomb that was used to evacuate the Murdering Temple. With our current strength, we might not be a match for the Murdering Temple. If we mobilize an army, we'll definitely be discovered by the Murdering Temple. Chen Ming put down his teacup, 100,000 people, how many cultivators are there? Wang Meng said, about 3,000, all elites of the Murdering Temple. Chen Ming put down his teacup, let's go back to my room and look at the map. Chen Ming and Wang Meng returned to their room in the inn. Wang Meng nodded at the sentries outside and entered the room. Wang Meng opened the map of Jiangwang Tomb. Chen Ming sat in front of the map and looked at the location of Jiangwang Tomb. A large river surrounded the tomb, leaving only the mouth of a gourd exposed. Wang Meng explained, Jiangwang Tomb is located in a dense forest and is extremely hidden. It's also the Murdering Temple's method of concealing themselves. There's also a large river surrounding the tomb and there's only one entrance. As long as we guard this entrance, it's like an iron bucket, easy to defend but hard to attack. With our current forces, it's impossible to break in. There's a saying in military history that if we have 10 times as many troops, we'll need at least 10 times as many troops to have a chance of breaking in. The enemy has 100,000 troops, while we only have 30,000. Chen Ming looked at the location of Jiangwang Tomb on the map. It really is a good place. This large river was a natural barrier, blocking all paths of attack. Crossing the river? What a joke. The process of crossing the river was extremely dangerous, and they were fighting with fewer troops. A single volley of fire arrows could set all the ships on fire. They could practically wipe out the entire army without suffering any losses. Dense forest, fire, and a large river. Chen Ming seemed to have thought of something. He looked at the mouth of the gourd and asked, "How long is this mouth of the gourd?" Wang Meng said, "According to our intelligence, this mouth of the gourd is 30 li long. Moreover, it's covered in dense forest, making it extremely difficult to move. The murdering temple has occupied this place for a long time and is familiar with the terrain. If this was the case, then it would be a little interesting." Chen Ming pointed at the gourd on the map. He didn't know how to command a war, but he did read the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Lu Xun used fire to destroy Liu Bei's army of 1,000,000. To win with the few against the many, we must not only remove the river as a barrier, but also turn it into a path of death for them. Pass on my order, order the general of the caravan to buy wood, then have the other soldiers lead the men to cut down the trees. Remember, the trees must be cut along the gourd's opening, a 3 zhang wide path. But don't connect them, leaving a small distance between each path. To prevent the murdering temple from seeing through our plan, send the other soldiers to cut down the trees near the river, treating it as an ordinary purchase of wood. Wang Meng thought to himself, isn't this a war? Why are you chopping wood? Let alone the fact that the murdering temple doesn't understand the crown prince's intentions, even I don't know what the crown prince is thinking. However, even if he didn't understand, he still followed Chen Ming's orders. Forget it, I'll just treat it as the crown prince is messing around. Another 3 days passed, and the logging team went into the mountains to cut down trees. How could the murdering temple not notice such a big commotion? Jiangwang Tomb. It was called Jiangwang Tomb. Naturally, it was the tomb of a prince. However, after the murdering temple occupied this place, they built many wooden camps around it. The temple lord of the murdering temple was listening to his subordinate's report. He wore a bronze mask that covered his face and wore a black robe. Temple master, our army of 100,000 will gather at Jiangwang Tomb in 3 days. The hall master stood up from his hall master's seat and clapped his hands with a smile. Good. Any movements from the nearby Flying Tiger army? The scout reported, not much. It is said that they are waiting for the regent's crown prince to arrive. Otherwise, with the current situation between the Grand General and the regent, any strange movements would be suspected by the Grand General and the regent. The palace lord revealed a smile, ha ha ha, good, I've been waiting in the mountains for this moment. Let's let Qin Yuhu and Chen Wang fight each other to the bitter end. When the time comes, father will coordinate from the inside and I will lead the army to attack from the outside. I must capture the regent's entire family. Only then can I vent the hatred in my heart. The scout continued, right, there are some merchants nearby who are buying wood. That's why some people are chopping wood near Jiangwang Tomb. The temple lord chuckled, Chen Wang and Chen Yuhu are fighting. The Flying Tiger army will wait for Chen Ming's arrival and head for the capital. At that time, they will need wood to set up camp and build siege weapons. These merchants will naturally follow the smell of blood. The temple master's smile suddenly froze on his face. He was able to control the murdering temple because he had his own judgment. Wait, mark the location of the wood they are chopping on the map. The scout obeyed and pointed red dots on the map. They were scattered all over the place like stars in the sky, but most of them were on the side of the main road. The temple master glanced at it. It was a mess with no order at all. Besides, what's the use of chopping wood? Are they going to pile up his 100,000 soldiers to death? The entrance of the gourd was even more flat. There was no place for them to set up an ambush. The palace lord waved his hand and said, it seems that I was oversensitive. Pass down the order. Everyone, continue to hide. Don't let these people discover you. Also, don't send people to monitor these commoners, in case they are discovered. The scout cupped his hands, understood. The regent's residence. The regent walked into the main hall in a black robe. Qin Yu walked down from the main seat and cupped his hands. Imperial father. The regent's expression was somewhat angry. Don't you know we are acting right now? What's the matter? Why did you summon me here? Qin Yu said, Imperial father, according to the secret letter, the murdering temple has amassed 100,000 soldiers in Jiangwang tomb. The old prince stroked his beard and said, it seems that the royal family of the Yan kingdom has been doing a lot of things in the dark these years. No wonder they did not hesitate to let the people lurking under our command die to make us fight. But it seems that there is no need to alarm me about this, right? Qin Yu said, according to Wang Ming's letter, Ming wants to continue attacking the murdering temple. The regent's expression changed. What did you say? Qin Yu said, Ming wants to continue the fight. The old prince analyzed the situation. According to the news from Ming he only secretly gathered 30,000 soldiers from the Flying Tiger Army and 30 relentless Tiger Guards. Jiangwang Tomb is a place that is easy to defend and hard to attack. With 30,000 against 100,000, and the opponent is familiar with the terrain, isn't he just courting death? Pass down my order Ming to withdraw his troops. We won't attack the murdering temple for the time being. It doesn't matter if the 30,000 relentless Tiger Guards die, but nothing must happen to Ming Since the Yan imperial family has hidden 100,000 soldiers, we can't rush this. We need to plan this out. This isn't something Ming troops can handle. Qin Yu cupped his hands, I will pass down the order. Darkness fell and a full moon hung high in the sky. Inside the Cyclamen Inn, more than 10 generals were gathered together, waiting for Chen Ming's orders. Chen Ming finished his dinner and wiped his mouth with a handkerchief before heading downstairs. Chen Ming walked to the main seat and sat down. Just as he was about to speak, Wang Ming suddenly stood up and said, Your Highness, His Highness has sent an order. The enemy has the advantage of numbers and terrain. This matter has already exceeded Your Highness' ability to control. His Highness requests that Your Highness withdraw your troops. The following arrangements will be decided by His Highness and the Great General. This is a joint secret letter from the Great General and His Highness. After saying that, Wang Ming handed over the secret letter in his hand. Everything has already been arranged and you actually want me to withdraw my troops? If I withdraw my troops this time, wouldn't I have nothing to do with this mission that could change my fate as cannon fodder? No wonder it was a storyline mission. If it wasn't difficult, how could it change the fate of a cannon fodder? Chen Ming reached out and took the letter. Without opening it, he held it between 2 fingers and directly lit it on the candle. The candle lit the letter and the ashes of the letter were thrown in front of him. Chen Ming's cold gaze swept across the room. He said in an unquestionable tone, when a general is outside, the monarch's orders cannot be obeyed. Chen Ming looked at the generals and smiled, I'm not afraid to tell you that the murdering temple has 100,000 soldiers while we only have 30,000. Furthermore, the enemy has the terrain advantage. Jiangwang Tomb is an easy place to defend but hard to attack. If you are not willing to listen to my orders, you can leave. The generals looked at each other but did not say a word. They only dared to communicate with their eyes. After a while, a white-robed general stood up and cupped his hands. The enemy has 100,000 soldiers while we only have 30,000. Furthermore, the enemy has the terrain advantage. If we attack, it would be no different from sending ourselves to our deaths. This general will not accompany you. With that, the white-robed general stood up and left. Just as this white-robed general walked to the entrance of the inn, Chen Ming made a hand seal and the lustrous kingsword on his back landed in his hand. He tossed it into the air and the lustrous kingsword streaked across a plain white sword light. With a pft sound, it had already pierced through the white-robed general. The generals present revealed a look of surprise, and their bodies trembled slightly. As expected of the grandson of the regent, he was as ruthless and decisive as the regent. Chen Ming walked to the entrance of the inn and extended his hand to pick up the lustrous kingsword that was covered in blood. He lifted the white-robed general's white robe and wiped the blood off the lustrous kingsword. Chen Ming turned around and smiled at the generals in the inn. He revealed a harmless smile and said, Is there anyone else who wants to leave? If you want to leave, then hurry up and save me the trouble of cleaning my sword again. My Flying Tiger army has always had many people who wanted to be generals. Even if a dozen of them died, it won't affect us much. Perhaps only death awaits you if you attack the murdering temple. However, if you want to flee now, I can send you to an early death. The threat in his words had already been revealed. How could the generals dare to sit still? One of them hurriedly got up and knelt down. Your Highness the Crown Prince is our leader. This general will be loyal to Your Highness the Crown Prince's orders. Chen Ming's intentions were clear. They could either die now or follow him to attack the murdering temple to find a way out. Not to mention killing Chen Ming together. Even if they did, they might not be able to defeat Chen Ming. Moreover, Chen Ming had the relentless Tiger Guard protecting him. Wouldn't they be courting death if they attacked now? Even if they could escape, the regent and the generals would probably just laugh it off. Would they really punish Chen Ming, their own grandson and son? On the other hand, they would have to wait for Chen Ming's revenge. After one of the generals made his stance clear, the others followed suit and knelt down in front of Chen Ming. We will follow Your Highness's orders wholeheartedly. This general will definitely die for Your Highness. Chen Ming nodded. Very good. Chen Ming returned to his seat and looked at Wang Meng. Wang Meng divulged military secrets. Receive 30 strokes of the cane. Do not repeat this mistake. Seeing that Chen Ming had the situation under control, Wang Meng smiled helplessly and cupped his hands. This subordinate obeys. After that, he went out to receive the cane. Chen Ming continued, 3 days later, I want you to gather 20,000 men at the mouth of the gourd. The other 10,000 men will bring all the alchemical fire oil you can find and spread out to surround Jiangwang tomb. Wait for my orders. Tell the shadow guards in the murdering temple to destroy the tunnels in the murdering temple at all costs once we're ready. Once this is done, immediately send out a signal flare and break out of the encirclement. Chen Ming was done, but seeing no reaction from the generals, he asked coldly, do you understand? The generals stood up and cupped their hands. We will do as you say. Although Wang Mei received the cane, he still reported Chen Ming's insistence on attacking to Chen Yuhu and the old prince. Chen Ming knew about it but didn't care. Now that he had power, by the time his father heard about it, a fight would have broken out. 3 days later, night fell. The regent's residence. The old prince walked into the regent's residence with a black robe draped over his shoulders. But as soon as he entered the hall, he threw the black robe on the ground. What is it this time? This is the second time. Chen Yuhu, you have to give me an explanation. Chen Yuhu was also helpless. This little bastard was disobedient, so his old man could only vent his anger on him. Father, tomorrow in front of all the generals, burn the secret letter that we sent. Also, say something like a general is away from home, the emperor's orders are not to be taken. The old prince stroked his beard and smiled. A general being away from home and not taking orders from the emperor. This kid is like me when I was young. After all, he's a descendant of the Chen clan. Wait, you're saying he's going to defy orders? Chen Yuhu nodded helplessly. The old prince was fuming with rage. This little bastard dares to defy the heavens. Send someone to bring this little bastard back in one piece no matter what. Chen Yuhu said, I've already sent out the remaining 20 relentless tiger guards and ordered all the flying tiger army near Jiangwang tomb to provide assistance. However, I'm afraid that before our news reaches them, a fight has already broken out over there. I invited Imperial Father over to report this news to him. The old prince clenched his right fist so hard it cracked. Am I, the Chen king, going to have no descendants? That bastard. Outside Jiangwang tomb, Chen Ming was riding on a ferocious tiger. A black figure darted out of the forest and knelt respectfully in front of Chen Ming. He cupped his hands and said, Lord Nighthawk has already destroyed the tunnel. Chen Ming nodded and took out a map. He had the generals around him come over and drew a line at the mouth of the gourd. Quickly connect these logging belts. Do it immediately. The generals didn't understand Chen Ming's intentions at all. But now that the arrow was knocked on the bow, they had no choice but to shoot. They cupped their hands and said, This general obeys. End of chapter 10. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video to support the channel.